Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this edition of Cut the Crop. I'm Scott Champion, and today we're talking to FAR Research Lead Joe Drummond and to the New Zealand Flour Millers Association Director Phil Jackson of Mauri Mills. Welcome, Joe and Phil. Great to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Joe and Phil are going to be talking to us today about a new Growers to Bakers program. So it's about connecting what we do on farm with the needs of both our flour millers and our bakers, who obviously are the users of the grains out of the arable sector. So I'm going to start with Joe. Joe, tell us a bit about the Growers to Bakers program and what is involved in it.
Well, you touched on it when you described it. It's really about linking our growers with the end users, so whether they be the millers or the bakers, and understanding the needs of millers and bakers, and if there's anything that we can do in the arable sector that can help support that New Zealand Grown Grains initiative. It sort of spun off the back of some confusion around different messaging that was coming out, and we felt that it was a really good opportunity to bring all those people together and start publicising what grain quality means, what flour quality means, and what baking quality means.
And is this the first time that we've sort of had a program that takes, if you like, that a long chain view, connecting what we do on farm with the needs of those post-farm?
At FAR, yes, but there have been efforts over probably the last 40 or so years. So some of the older growers or more mature growers might remember the way things were back in the 1980s, and there have probably been various attempts along the way. But now we're at a position where we've got the New Zealand Grown Grains initiative that can help piggyback it. There are newer technologies like the Burt Bake test that can perhaps give us a better proxy of how something's going to perform. And we can link all of those things together.
And grain quality and performance traits can mean different things for a grower, for a miller, for a baker. Tell us a little bit about that.
So they can be, but not necessarily. So the grain quality measurements that we will collect as growers are things like protein. So that's, a good indicator of what the resistance and strength is going to be. But Phil might be able to enlighten us that, it's not always, it doesn't, just because it's got high protein doesn't mean that it behaves the same every year. Things like falling number, that's really important. And I think, Phil, you can elaborate on that. You can't manage your way out of a low falling number. Test weight, 1,000 grain weight, they're all indicators, but protein and falling number particularly. Maybe, Phil, you've got an end user hat on.
I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand is that the protein isn't the be all and end all. We've had years where we've had really good protein that's performed really badly as a flour. And then we've had years where we've had really, really bad protein and it's done the complete opposite. And that's where you see the New Zealand Grown Grain Initiative, you see the grain coming from Australia. That there's a crossover between the two to get the consistency of product coming through. Falling number is one of the biggest helps. It doesn't lie, as Joe said, you can't manage your way out of a bad falling number. And that's where we need to understand what's coming off farm to what the bakers need. The requirements that the bakers have of us as millers is significantly different to what we have currently on farm. So the type of questions that we get asked by our customers don't directly relate to what we've looked for in the past. It's always been about protein, when realistically now we're starting to talk about the characteristics of the grain.
Yeah.
And that's really important for us moving forward.
Absolutely. Joe, my understanding is that the CPT is going to be quite important for this program. Just tell us a little bit about the connection to the CPT and what role that plays.
Well, CPT gives an indication of, it's the cultivars that we're going to be using. They're the cultivars that are going into the mills. And traditionally, we have done rheology testing, so we've done extensograph and farinograph, and those are isolated parts of the baking process that have been used to determine the quality of how things are going to perform. So now there's the Burt Bake test. So Burt is the Baking Industry Research Trust. They've developed over the years a new method where it takes the sort of mechanical dough development and it sort of shrinks it down to a manageable size to do test baking. That gives you a really good indication of how something's going to perform. Now, we have in the past done rheology data on CPT, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. We're looking to publish that to give growers some indications because, Phil's talking about protein being different from one year to the next. What we're looking for is balance between resistance and strength, and extensibility. And it's not enough to just be hard. It's got to move both ways. So some of these tests that we're looking to do are going to help build data around our cultivars so we can understand how we might need to manage them differently if we need to.
And so how's that testing going to be done, Joe? Who's going to be involved and what are the different elements that are going to be involved?
Well, luckily, we've already got an established CPT network. So we have the milling wheat trials where we can collect samples post-harvest. We're also doing some demonstration trials that we're looking to amp up and over the seasons, where we're looking at, in this particular instance, we're looking at combinations of premium and medium cultivars. So we have Reliance, Duchess, and Aston. I'd be interested, Phil, to see how that milled. And then we've also got Discovery, which has been around for quite a long time, and it sits within that medium grade. And we're looking at imposing different nitrogen regimes across those and really understanding our soil supply. So integrating, the N-Smart calculators that FAR's helped to develop, really understanding where that potentially mineralizable N is coming and how we can make decisions that might actually give us more consistency over seasons.
Joe, thank you. Phil, I might just turn to you now. You touched a little bit on the fact that you can have a particular protein will perform, or protein value will perform well one year, not so well the other year. What are some of the key traits that deliver a good milling wheat into your mill?
Consistent test weight. That's is massive to us. That has a direct relation to the extraction we get out of the grain. So that's where we make our dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Stable falling number, consistent protein, the blood kernel size coming through, and that moisture content of the grain coming through, that consistency. Just a side note, wasn't it exciting to see how many people at the CPT trials when we were there?
We had 70 plus people. It was great.
It was outstanding, and to see the cultivars that were there that we consistently middle, the Reliances of the world, that's just been that grain that just does what it says on the box forever. And Aston, that we did our first trials on the other day, and it's stacking up. It's quite exciting to see a grain that's doing that again. It's been rare recently, so it's really nice to see those trials coming through. But the falling number is very important. Like I said before, protein's still important, but we just need to get the quality of protein. As Joe said, it doesn't just have to be hard. It has to do what it needs to do. And the bakers these days and some of the international customers we have are so demanding. We have a 0.5 literally difference in protein of acceptable or not acceptable. That's our margin that we have to play with, so it's very, very difficult.
What adjustments can you make at the milling stage? So products coming in, comes from different farms. Are there things that you can do to help get the outcomes, or is that limited?
It's limited. Like realistically, in the milling process, the only thing we can really affect is the water absorption. And the rest of it is actually done by the baker. We can add gluten and stuff like that, but that's not the game that we're in. That's something that really gets done at the bakeries with their improvers and alike. So in the scheme of things, we get what we get, and it's really difficult to manage in the sense that not every mill has multiple silos that you can start divvying different types of grains to get. That even though it's meant to be within a certain parameter, if you want to narrow up that scope and you start blending in our grist, we could achieve it, but nobody has that space. And that's where it's so important to actually, to deal with FAR, to deal with the farmers, to deal with the bakers, to know exactly what everybody wants and what everybody's getting on farm. There's going to be years that the grain isn't going to perform. The harvest is going to be late. Are we going to start having sprouted grains? These things, there's millers that we need to start looking at as well. What's plan B?
Phil, we know we don't grow enough grain here for human consumption, and we have significant imports that come in from Australia. What's the difference between Australian grain and New Zealand grain?
The Australian grain is consistent. Okay, it does have a lower moisture content, so we get to add a bit more water to it. But you got to put it into perspective. There's multiple thousands of tons coming in and getting blended together. That's where you get the consistency. I might bring in at the mill where I'm at in a day from 23 different paddocks, 23 different farms. It's all the same cultivar, but every one of them's different. And the thing is that for the scale that's coming out of Australia, which is a net exporter, it's uneconomic to try and currently to get into the North Island. The freight just kills it. So you have to hedge your bets. We have some fairly large breed manufacturers that do a 50-50 grist just to cover themselves, because these years, like was mentioned at the CPT trials, that Australia had a shocker about 4 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, but then 7 years ago we had a shocker as well.
Yeah.
So, we still got to have the old saying, keep bread on the table. So that's where the work that's being done currently to develop the grains and the sustainability of the grain coming through is critically important to us.
Joe mentioned earlier on the New Zealand Grains Initiative. Phil, I've actually got the sticker here on my the cover of my folder here today. Just tell us a bit about your own perspective, Miller's perspective on the Grains Initiative, and what opportunities it might provide.
We're excited about it. A lot of us, myself predominantly, have been very heavily involved with it, Rob and Daydot. I'm lucky in the sense that I've come from a mill that was 100% New Zealand wheat, and still is currently, to an operation that mills both. And the people need to understand that the milling game is difficult, and there's not horrendous a lot of money in it either. I know if I was born that hat from the other side of the fence. So it's having this initiative and getting the awareness out there, and people actually understanding the battles that we have and how important it is to support local and support national. It's really, really important to make sure that people get that, because the more demand there is for it, that realistically there may be a need to pay more for it, but that will cover the cost of getting it to where it needs to be at the same time.
Joe, just to close, any other observations or things you'd like listeners to hear just in terms of this piece of work?
I mean, it's really great that we've got Phil here today, but the people who aren't in the room are the bakers, and the Baking Industry Research Trust are also really supportive of this piece of work, and it's really wonderful to have the millers and the bakers interacting and so open and interested in sharing information. And I think that going forward is going to be really important and critical for our growers, especially as we continue to farm with under limits and constraints to our system. So I think we're in a really great position to be able to capitalise on the New Zealand Grown Grains Initiative, integrate the new testing technologies, understand what we're doing, and then start unpacking whether or not we can actually influence our management. So it really does become a whole supply chain issue. So, we at FAR start with the seed and, ending up with a loaf of bread at the supermarket at the other end. So it's a great thing to be able to pull them all together.
That's a great point, Joe, and it was great at ARIA to see Phil, colleagues from the baking sector, and you being able to present collectively and tell that story along the chain, and to see the interest that generated from the audience at the various presentations of the day. So today I've been talking to our research lead, Joe Drummond, and to New Zealand Flour Millers Association Director Phil Jackson about this new program called Growers to Bakers, which is a really exciting along-the-chain initiative to connect what we do on farm with the needs of those that are producing the flour and then producing the baked products as well. So I hope you found that valuable, and have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.